But let's look at step number 2, inspect and survey. Let's get some meat on the bone on this topic. It sounds a little bit frightening to me. Surveying seems to be quite a complicated thing. Now, if I look back at the property I looked at last week, I went to this open viewing, and some of you might have been there who watched this, or it normally happens, it's like an open day and 20 people like me, we're all trotting around the property. Some people have little notes to take, some people have iPhones and take photos, and then you walk away. What could I have done better?
Well, the important thing to remember is that you typically only have half an hour. Those auction viewings take place at an allocated time, and you've typically got half an hour to look at it. So you've got to be pretty good, pretty organised, and pretty systemised at the way you look at that.
I wasn't. I just walked in and had a little notepad with me. So
well, the problem is that when you go home, you'll say to yourself, "Oh, what about this and that and the other?" And you don't know. You have to waste more time going to see it again to clarify another particular point. Personally, what I do is I've developed a 9-page pro forma, which is like a survey checklist.
9 pages?
9 pages.
A lot of detail.
There's a lot of detail in it, but it makes sure that I cover absolutely everything, so that everything is there, everything is captured and can be captured in that half an hour. And so when you do go home, because when you go home, you're starting to think, well, can I do this angle, or can I see it in this particular way?
But then you will need
and
those
then you
notes,
need the data to explore whether you can actually do it.
That's interesting.
Go and inspect, capture all the information, then go back and think about the different types of angles as well.
I like that, because taking notes is only what you see right now, but having the checklist forces you to look at all kinds of data. Yes. It's a bit intimidating when you walk around this auction probably with other people. You don't want to give things away, and everyone's there, you don't know how you fit in. So that checklist again focuses you on your stuff.
Absolutely.
Just go through it. You're there to evaluate a proposition.
It also keeps your mind on what you're there for.
Yeah.
Because when I go to these viewings, there's always some guy there at one of these viewings who is a bit of a loudmouth, and their sole purpose seems to be to talk to everybody to put them off.
Ah, okay.
You
so
must
that's
have
their strategy. Yes.
like that.
There was one there actually. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you think they just try to discourage them?
I think I think
It's a ploy.
ignore them. Focus on your checklists. Do what you're there to do, and you think about what you can see.
So
Don't worry about what others.
this checklist has been developed over all your years. You started adding to it, so until it got to this complete 9-pager.
Absolutely.
Just for that.
I mean, again, we do a lot of auction purchases for myself and joint venture partners and the like. I don't go to all the viewings myself. I have some staff in the office. I developed this primarily so that I can send people out, who obviously know something, but they can capture all the information in a structured way, so that then we can sit down and review it and look at all the angles.
It makes sense. You must have a situation where the person you send comes back from the viewing and you ask him a question. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't look at that."
Yeah.
And now it's like, show me the checklist.
Yeah.
Everything's there. Everything you need to know to evaluate the deal in different angles.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So, tip then for everybody watching and listening: have a checklist. Ideally, the 9-page checklist that you develop. But whatever you do, have a checklist and make the most of those short windows.
Yes. It all goes back to this phrase "panning for gold." Because the problem that people have is there are loads of lots in this. So how do you quickly focus in on the ones that can make money? Because there are lemons in this catalogue as well. And the only way is with these sort of checklists, learned experience, all in there, so that you can quickly evaluate which are the lots that are worth pursuing and which are not.
It's also what you said earlier, is to be able to just run it based on numbers, not get emotionally attached to an opportunity.
Yes.
So the next section is section 3 in your 6-step process. You call it navigating the legal maze. It sounds even scarier than the survey bit, okay? Because that is when all the horror stories that people have heard of auctions happen. Oh yeah, he bought this. I know somebody bought the auction, and then something happened. The legal pack was missing. What is the legal pack, and what should I look out for if I go to an auction?
Very good question. I mean, I think people should understand how the auction process differs from buying a property in the normal way. If you buy a property through an estate agent, the vendor has a solicitor, you have a solicitor. The minute you put the offer in, the vendor's solicitor will then prepare the contract of sale and all the necessary papers for you to buy. And then that pack of information will be sent across to your solicitor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there isn't time for that in the auction process. So what tends to happen is the vendor, the seller, puts together, or the seller's solicitor puts together all the documents that your solicitor will need to buy the property in a pack, and allows you to inspect those documents before the day of the sale.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the hammer goes down and you win, you've exchanged contracts.
Okay, so in essence, it's all the work that normally the seller solicitor does.
Yeah.
Is already done and is there ready and waiting for
It's
every
ready.
lot in
Yes.
the auction.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. So
yes.
what are you looking for? I mean, I wouldn't know what to look for. So
It's all checklists again, because it depends on the type of property you're buying.
what,
I mean,
leasehold,
generally,
freehold,
exactly. There are things to look for with freehold property,
commercial
property, leasehold property, and also properties that have tenants in. There are different things to look out for. Things may be missing from the legal pack, which can cause problems. Things may be out of the ordinary in some of the documents in the legal pack.
And you need a checklist to determine what that is.
Absolutely.
I remember on one of the field trips we did with your mentoring group, and a property mentoring group, you said if something's missing in the legal pack, assume the worst.
Yes, absolutely.
So if somebody leaves out documentation that could help them to sell the property,
Yes.
there's normally a reason for
Yes,
it.
and it's buyer beware.
Yeah.
But the defective legal packs or defective legal documentation can also be a profit opportunity. And I think people...
Can you tell an example where you exploited that?
This is a classic where that happens. I mean, people often think adding value to a property, right, I need a set of power tools and I need builders in and I need to refurbish. But there are loads of properties that come up where the legals are deficient and simply you add value by fixing the legals so that the property becomes mortgageable again.
Oh, okay, that sounds very kind of aloof. Give me a real example. So a legal pack is legal documents that make a property sellable.
Yes.
You determine one piece is missing.
Yes.
And which piece missing is something you can easily fix that can be a profit angle, and which piece missing would be disastrous, don't go there. So give me an example of how you profit from it.
One of our sort of standard angles that we talk about is the sort of fixing planning problems. Now, classic problem, bought a property, the property is split into two flats. The seller of the property had permission to split the building into two flats, but he implemented the conversion after the planning permission had lapsed. So technically, although it was two flats, it had no permission for it.
Okay, so that would be flagged in a legal pack, and most people say, ooh, stay away, missing planning.
The thing about this is that it has been used as two flats for more than 4 years. But technically, it doesn't have the permission. So the problem the vendor has is that he wants to sell quickly. He can't put it on with an estate agent because no one would get a mortgage on flats without planning. So because he needs to sell quickly, he has to sell to a trade buyer. So simple angle, although mortgage companies won't lend on it, bridging firms have no problem.
Wow.
Bridging companies.
So what is the 4 years thing you mentioned there? Why is that significant?
Because if the property has been in its existing use for more than 4 years, whether or not it's got planning, it's possible to regularise it.
Wow. So you can fix the legal pack.
Yes,
He
exactly.
would. The vendor would have had to put it in the auction at a low price because of the deficient paperwork.
Because no one could buy it with a mortgage. So in that example, the two flats.
So that means the market for him is tiny.
Absolutely.
I mean, all mortgage buyers are out.
They're out.
A couple of trade buyers are back in.
They're
they
out,
normally don't care about the small stuff or small properties. They're looking at bigger. So
yes. Now the beauty of that particular deal: buy the property, apply for retrospective planning to regularise its use as two flats, and then literally 9 weeks later, when that planning permission has been regularised, you've got two flats which you can sell through an estate agent to owner-occupier buyers.
High street prices.
High street prices. And guess what?
Retail market.
You don't have to use a single power tool or do anything.
That is a very powerful strategy.
Construction work of any kind.
I like it.